We are talking schools this morning, increasing coronavirus numbers hitting the school system. A lot of parents getting emails this weekend and indeed in the early hours of this morning as distance learning and quarantine is called for classes or even whole schools. North London Collegiate School Dubai is one that has had to make the hard call over the weekend, moving to distance learning for the next 2 days. We are joined now by the principal, James Monaghan. James, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning. Pleasure to join you.
James, tell me about the call that you've had to make here. Why have you done it?
Well, first thing to say is that the safety of the students, staff and the wider community is the most important thing, and all the decisions that we're making at the moment, that's the thing that we have to put at the very front of those decisions, and it's constantly balancing the safety of that community and the provision of the education. So it's a tough call. There's lots of things that are changing at the moment, and I think given the break that we've had in our community bubble, which was the holidays, has meant that we've all returned to school last week and then this week with an increased number of challenges and decisions to make.
What level of infection do you need to see to shut down a school?
I think there's a manageable level, and it does depend a little bit on whether it's within the student body or the staff body. One of the biggest challenges, particularly when it affects the staff, is actually having people in the school to cover that face-to-face learning. And that's one of those factors that influences those decisions. Within the student body and within the parent body, it can be a little bit easier, because if parents are sensible and make the right decisions, and they keep their children at home when they show symptoms, then things can be manageable. But it does become complex, particularly with siblings across different parts of the school. And what's been very evident in the last week since the break is that level of complexity across the community has increased.
Are parents in general being sensible in terms of the measures families are taking, in terms of the information and how forthcoming they're being with you?
My advice to parents is please be honest, and I think I would hope that all parents at my school, but also at all other schools, try to remove that stigma, I think, that's sometimes associated with having COVID. I think we all appreciate now that this is a global pandemic. It's nobody's fault quite often when people contract the virus, and it's really important that parents understand that stigma needs to be removed, and they need to be completely upfront and honest for us to be able to run our schools in the right way.
So what kind of liaison and consultation is involved in making one of these decisions? Who do you need to speak to, and how do you work in with authorities?
So the protocols and guidelines from the Dubai Health Authority and KHDA are updated regularly. They're something that all principals and all schools have to read and understand and adhere to. So that's the first thing that drives a lot of what we do. And also the decisions that we make all have to be approved by KHDA and DHA. So the other part of the process that sometimes means that decisions are made a little bit at the last minute is that process of approval, is that process of communication. So as a principal, yesterday, I got to the point where I wanted to make a decision. I felt that it was safer that students were online, but I have to go through a process again of communicating with KHDA, with DHA, getting all of my communication approved by them before it's sent to parents. So that's another part of the process that has to take place.
Do they look at the letters you send out?
Absolutely, yes. All my written communication about COVID has to be approved, and that's the same for all schools.
How do you decide the tone of those letters, James? Because I've seen quite a few of them now, and some of them are very reassuring. Some of them are bordering on scolding the parents to whom they are sent. Tell me what you're trying to do with yours.
My letters, I hope, have a sense of community. Right since this pandemic began back in March last year or February last year, what I think is most important for my school is that we have a sense of community and that we're all working together. So my letters, I hope, are worded as such, and parents read them and understand why I'm making those decisions. You don't please everybody all of the time, of course, and yes, I have seen a lot of the other letters that other schools have sent, but that's often down to leadership and the type of person leading the school.
What kind of pressure do you get from parents to either keep the school gates open or to close them and move kids online?
It's been interesting this week. I've sensed a slight shift, actually, since the break, in that the community does understand what is going on. Back in September, or even earlier, parents were a little less understanding, and obviously the impacts of COVID were hitting them, their businesses, their lives. I think there's a much better understanding with parents now, and certainly the decision that we made over the weekend was actually received on the whole very positively. I had a good number of emails yesterday, as you can imagine, and the vast majority of them were supporting the decision that had been made. And yes, we absolutely understand that parents have jobs to go to. Many families have working parents, both mums and dads, and it's really important that we take that into consideration. But as I said before, ultimately the safety of the community is the driving force.
20 seconds, how much can you ask of your teachers? How much can you restrict your teachers when it comes to their own behaviour and social lives?
You can set a tone, and I think it's about having an ethos and an understanding within the school, and that teachers have a responsibility as people who are in contact with students every day. And I think it's really important that we all, as principals and as schools, make sure that staff understand that. Obviously, I can't follow them around at the weekend or in the evenings, but we do our very best to make sure that they all understand what's expected of them.
James Monaghan, Principal of North London Collegiate School in Dubai, joining us on the line to talk about making the difficult decision that a lot of schools are making at the moment, some even this morning, about whether to open the school gates on a Sunday morning.